Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Lote Tumaco wash process Panamanian Gesha from Say Coffee Roasters. And there's the box right there. And Say, based out of Brooklyn, New York, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions about this coffee, so let me go ahead and try to address them real quick. First things first, if you're wondering why you might have never seen this on Say's website, then that's because it was never offered on their website. This is a very limited edition, limited quantity coffee that I was fortunate enough to find from a wholesale buyer of Say's coffees, and they were willing to sell me one of these boxes. And I'm sure the follow-up question to that is, how much was this box of coffee? And the answer to that is $42 for 125 grams. So definitely on the more expensive side of coffees we have reviewed on this channel. But there are a number of reasons I wanted to purchase this coffee, aside from the fact that washed Panamanian Geshas are my favorite coffee in the entire world. The secondary reason being, I've always been curious as to how Say might do with their higher-end coffees. Say is one of my favorite coffee roasters in the entire world, and I've never had something from their higher-end offerings, so it was going to be interesting to see how they did with a coffee of this caliber. This right here is day 28 of this coffee. And recipe we settled on for this coffee was a 16.67 to 1 water to coffee ratio at 205 degrees Fahrenheit brewed through the Chemex, and we'll elaborate on that a little bit later in this video. And they are one of the lightest roasting American coffee roasters, so it's a light American for the roast profile. And let's go ahead and start discussing this coffee. So day 14, first time trying it, and based off of previous experiences with Say's coffees, they're really hard to dial in, and you typically want to wait 3 weeks plus, but based off of our first impression, I think we're kind of going on gut feeling given how little of this coffee we had and how little time we had to make adjustments. Started out with a high dosage based off previous experiences, so that was a 15 to 1 and medium temperature 205 degrees Fahrenheit, and the overall impression of this coffee was slightly floral, slightly grainy, and the kind of secondary component was this very delicate, soft, what essentially tasted like a delicate, soft version of those Japanese lychee gummies, so would describe it as lychee, but had to go on gut feeling with this first impression, and my gut feeling was just wait on the coffee, don't make too many adjustments on the coffee, as I felt like it had a lot of potential just based off of waiting. So day 18, went back with a very standard recipe, that 16.67 to 1, 205 degrees, and it was stunning. So I didn't want to adjust the recipe too much from that point for a number of reasons. Obviously, given how much I was loving the coffee, based off this secondary impression, I didn't want to maybe ruin it, even if there was a little bit more potential that could have been brought out from this coffee. It was so good, I just had so little of this coffee, I didn't want to mess with it. Provided a very clean and clear base that paved way for a slightly delicate tropical fruit and a slight bit of that citrus fruit as well. Faint lime-like finish in the cup of coffee. For lack of a better description, I mean, it tastes like Panamanian Geshas, and for anybody that hasn't had a Panamanian Gesha, it's kind of difficult to describe, but it has a very distinct and unique flavor to it. That's this ridiculously clean flavor, subtly, elegantly sweet, really amazing cup of coffee based off the second try. Day 20, wonderfully clean still, pretty similar notes, super clean base providing a super clean lime component in the cup, and that was the most notable finish throughout drinking this cup of coffee, was this kind of distinct out there lime, very delightful and elegant lime in the cup of coffee as well, subtly sweet and delicate, really amazing, still really impressed. Day 22, very little worth adding at this point. The coffee has been extremely consistent to this point, and of course that can be attributed to no changes in the recipe, but it was hitting this really nice peak where the coffee was just amazing day in, day out. Coffee has a really amazing stride after it has cooled down a slight bit, so naturally, as you'd imagine, right after it's been brewed, it just needs a little bit of time to cool down, a little closer to room temperature, and then the coffee really pops with this beautiful, clean elegance. Day 24, coffee continues skewing slightly more towards this more citric profile. So what was once this super clean and slightly tropical and slightly more citrus, like think orange flavor, was skewing a little bit more towards this dominant lime flavor in the finish. And it wasn't quite as enjoyable, but from day 18, day 18 through day 24, really, really nice cup of coffee. It had this beautiful window where I was just really amazed by how the coffee was turning out. Clean as ever, pretty as ever, very much enjoying it. Day 26, final day, and was definitely losing a slight bit of the vibrancy that the coffee had. It was skewing a lot more towards that lime profile to the cup of coffee. Still very much has that wonderful Panamanian Gesha taste to it, which I think most people would probably describe as a very delicate, like white flower. And that's what I was getting from this. Pretty citric start to finish on this day though. So definitely a slight bit of a change, but still a really, really pretty and elegant cup of coffee. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we're getting. And the tasting wheel looks like a Panamanian Gesha tasting wheel, as you could imagine, as it's skewed in a lot of specific directions. And of course, the first thing we must discuss is the cleanliness, which is at a level 5, and this is a relative scale. So I think if you were comparing this to a lot of other coffees we might have put at a level 5 recently, like the Coffee Collective was the most recent one, it's cleaner than that. So relative to that, it would probably be something like a level 7, but obviously the chart doesn't go that way. And then the secondary thing is the citrus fruit at level 5. Even when the lime wasn't as pronounced, the secondary characteristic was an orange, so the citrus fruit were definitely the most dominant fruits in this cup of coffee. Even then, they were pretty subtle and delicate, so that being said, they still justified that level 5 as they were pretty pronounced with such a clean base to the cup of coffee. Stone fruit, berry fruit, level 2 each, as they were there, but not quite as prominent. Definitely very, very subtle in this cup of coffee. Other things worth noting: finish, level 4, sweetness, level 4, both, again, delicate and somewhat tame, but definitely there as well. Sweetness was really, really pretty sweetness. Florals, level 4. Yeah, the base is definitely there. It doesn't necessarily justify pushing it all the way up to a level 5. And then the acidity, level 3, as this is a very light profiled cup of coffee, there was quite a bit of acidity in there, but given how much I was enjoying the entirety of this cup of coffee, I hardly actually even noticed how much acidity there was in this cup of coffee. All right, overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee. I think the first thing I have to say is we were curious how Say might do with such a high-end coffee, and they knocked it out of the park. So this is very much my flavor profile. It is the epitome of what I love about coffee, and therefore, Say getting it absolutely 100% spot on is a testament to Say, and it puts a lot of faith in the fact that they can do something really impressive with high-end coffee offerings. So it's safe to say this will end up on our top 10 coffees of the year list. It'll end up probably pretty high on our top 10 coffees of the year list, as this is honestly everything I love about coffee. It's delicate, it's clean, it's floral, it's sweet, it's fruity. It's as close to perfect as you can get for this type of coffee. Would say type of person I would suggest this coffee to, but that's a little tricky as you could never purchase this coffee. But anybody that's never had a Panamanian Gesha, I just want to say this: at least give it a shot, because there's a reason that this is probably the most sought after coffee in the entire world, and a lot of coffee enthusiasts really harp on how amazing and impressive these Panamanian Geshas are. If you really love clean coffees, this is just about as clean as you can get, and this is such a legendary coffee. I mean, the Panamanian Gesha is such an amazing, impressive coffee that every time I get an opportunity to review it, I feel like the luckiest person ever. Anytime they roll around, it's the first thing I want. Anytime I look at a coffee menu, it's the first coffee I want to try. So I'm really happy with this cup of coffee, and I just implore anybody that's never had one to try one. They're just really impressive cups of coffee. But I've obviously been gushing about this coffee and Panamanian Geshas way too much, so I'm just going to leave this review at that. You probably didn't have an opportunity to try this coffee, but if you've had anything from Say, would love to know your thoughts and impressions of them as well. If you feel the same way as I do about Panamanian Geshas, go ahead and let me know as well in the comments. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Lote Tumaco wash process Panamanian Gesha from Say Coffee Roasters. Thank you for watching.